It's back, baby. UCLA basketball season is practically upon us. What do the Bruins look like when they play San Diego State in a season opening exhibition? We got KJ here to talk about it here on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Once again, joined by Kris Johnson, a 1995 national champ, longtime Bruin, and a great writer with those 4 letters. And hey, also talks with his pops about here district, about the Milwaukee Bucks. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. What we're talking about today, we're going to go a lot into men's hoops leading into that scrimmage exhibition against San Diego State. We'll give the love to the women's team, top 5 overall in the country with the preseason poll, and we'll just talk about the crazy turnaround that Tim Skipper's led with this football team in the final segment. Kris, thanks for coming back. We've had media days for Big Ten hoops. UCLA looks like a preseason top 3 Big Ten team, top 12 overall in the country. Where does that fit with your perception of this year's UCLA team going into the first exhibition?
Wow, I mean, I've been kind of surprised by the love, actually, that the Bruins have gotten for the most part by the national media. I mean, it's been a lot of love. A lot of people are very high on UCLA. They believe in Mick Cronin. They believe in his ability to coach up this roster, if you will. You lose in a Dymar, you bring in Xavier Booker, Stephen Jamerson, in the most pivotal position, Anthony Peoples Jr., the most important position, I think, in Big Ten basketball, the center spot. You know, it surprised me. I'll just say that. But I do think a lot of the sentiment as far as the love has to do with what UCLA did in the offseason as far as terms of bringing in Donovan Dent. Donovan Dent is one of the most electric players in all of college basketball. And Mick has been talking about him so much during this summer, just in terms of him being able to, be an offense without calling plays, him being able to get downhill and make decisions in NBA-like reads on pick and roll. And so, the things that he wants them to improve on as far in terms of defense and some things as far as seeing the floor and facilitating a little bit better, that goes right in line with the big picture of how this UCLA team is going to have to play this year in order to fulfill some of these preseason expectations.
The funny thing is, I remember looking at his New Mexico numbers. He had pretty good defensive stats, a little bit better than Tiger Campbell. That's a lot of his comp right now. Cronin hasn't had that true point guard since Campbell left the program after, he's like, all right, I've been here for so long. I got to go explore other options. So
Sure.
Then you have Dent come in, and then Cronin, first thing he says is, yeah, he needs to be better defensively. I'm like, wow. But you also look at what Dent brings. I think I saw a post, I don't know where it was, on Twitter/X, that he led the country in fast break layups. That's something that he brings that not even Tiger Campbell had, and is a new dynamic where I think we've talked about this before. Donovan Dent has to have the reins unleashed. He's got to be unlocked and ready to go. Do you think Mick Cronin's ready to do that with this year's team?
Well, I don't think he has a choice. I mean, I think that Mick understands it, and coaches do this to where you're going to coach to your personnel. So he didn't feel comfortable last year with Dylan Andrews and letting go of the reins and letting him just rock and roll and, with Sky Clark next to him. So now you have a guy coming in that was Mountain West Player of the Year that is one of the most dynamic open court players in the country. So as a coach, you bring that in, you think to yourself offensively, what type of structure, what type of scheme? Hey, I'm going to keep it simple. And you saw that a lot in a lot of the clips that were released this summer from UCLA practice in terms of just pick and rolls. I mean, the pick and roll is going to be a devastating offensive weapon for UCLA, let alone when we talk about gravity and the type of attention that Donovan Dent's going to attract. I mean, I'm just thinking about, surrounding him with shooters, the different lineups that you can bring in, guys like Trent Perry, Sky Clark, who's been playing well, by all accounts. Eric Daly, a little banged up, won't be with us on Friday, but, when he gets better, and then Tyler Bilodeau, somebody that, he's going to benefit. So my point about this all is everyone is going to benefit greatly from Donovan Dent. He's the gift that keeps on giving. He's one of those players where everybody's stats are going to go up. Everybody's points, rebounds, everything's going to go up. And then UCLA as a team, defensively, offensively, It's going to look more like a UCLA team that fans and observers that have been watching UCLA basketball for a long time are used to. Last couple of seasons, it did not look like UCLA basketball. Although the results were decent, there was still a drop off at the guard spot. I think now we got three really solid, high level, professional guys that will have professional basketball careers. What level that on the pro level, I won't speculate, but I do think that we have those type of guards in college basketball. For me, when you have a three-headed guard monster like UCLA has, Sky Clark, Trent Perry, Donovan Dent, you know what I mean? It's like, whoa. It's like, how do you deal with that? As I said it right here a couple months ago, it reminds me of an old school 2005 Illinois, D. Brown, Luther Head, and my man Darren Williams. Just like hard to stop, hard to guard, but then on swings and when you do stop one option, here's another guy coming downhill attacking the closeout.
Couple of points I'm going to bring up here. One, you mentioned how you're maybe not as high as the national media is on this year's team, especially because of the center. It almost seems like.
Well, I didn't. Maybe just real quick.
Okay.
I did say when I say it's high, I'm looking at this 12 ranking. I'm looking at all the top 10 way too early rankings. The John Rothstein 7. He's had us at 7 the entire summer. I'm looking at that like, wow. That is high. So
Andy Katz, Final Four dark horse.
Andy Katz got us a Final Four dark horse, which I don't have a problem with. But I'm just thinking in terms of, is UCLA, this iteration of UCLA, a top 12 team in the country? I'm not so sure. In the top 20, I would say yes. Top 12, you're talking about elite of the elite. I think there are a lot of questions at the 5, my man, before you can kind of say top 15. But hey, I may be wrong. Prove me wrong.
And here's the thing. You talk about, UCLA might need to struggle in the Big Ten. It's almost like they might struggle more in conference than they could in the NCAA tournament, because you do need the guard play to win in March, and UCLA hasn't necessarily had that, where they might struggle, but Mick might be able to pull it out in March. What do you think about that for them to move forward later down the year when they're facing different teams, mostly non-Big Ten teams potentially?
Well, I think what Mick has done with the scheduling is pretty much he's going to have this team ready to play any style of fight. I mean, the fight, whatever, play any style of game. We're going to see a lot of different styles, a lot of different types of teams, different offensive schemes during the course of the non-conference and this crazy conference gauntlet. So for me, and playing for going to 4 NCAA tournaments when I played and how we scheduled, how we played. The reality was, the games that you play during entire season are going to prepare you for good or for better for the NCAA tournament. How you take on those games and those challenges and how you improve as a unit on both sides of the ball sounds cliche, but that's truly what's going to matter. It's how are guys going to click? Is things going to come together? Is Xavier Booker going to be a dominant force in the paint by January? Is Steven Jamerson going to be who Mick has been saying he is during this entire offseason? Sky Clark. How is this offseason turbulence that he dealt with the passing of his father, how's that going to affect him? We're hoping he's going to use it as inspiration and motivation and go out and have the very best season possible. Trent Perry is another guy. I feel like, he's on that kind of guy. Basically, we have Eric Daly Jr., Tyler Bigelow. Everybody has something to prove at UCLA, in my opinion. None of these guys, maybe Donovan Dent, even him on the next level, they're not really projecting him like a surefire top 15 guy. So everybody kind of has something to prove in terms of raising their stock individually. And the best way to do that is team success and team basketball and starring in your role.
And it was interesting. Mick Cronin brought this up, I think, during Big Ten Media Days during his large, amount of interviews, that he thinks Donovan Dent just might be that energy glue guy coming off the bench at the NBA level. From what I saw, like a second unit has to earn that type of role. So he's trying to instill that in him now in college. We're going to pivot now a little bit, KJ, to what UCLA's first test is. We talk about the gauntlet. It starts right away. You talk about dark horse Final Four teams. Underneath UCLA for Andy Katz's list, you have San Diego State. And Mick Cronin's like, let's go sell out the place. Exhibition, of course, but go down to San Diego. Without EDJ, I think that's going to lead to a lot of minutes for Trent Perry, and we'll find out right away if he's, going to be big time this year. What's your expectation, and what do you need to see from this UCLA team Friday night in San Diego against the Aztecs to showcase the good and the bad?
Well, my expectation is San Diego State's going to come to try to kick UCLA's butt. I mean, they beat them last year in the secret scrimmage. San Diego State for years has considered themselves the premier program on the West Coast. They made a national championship game more recently than UCLA. There's a lot at stake at this game. I know it's an exhibition game, but this game is a barometer for a few things. San Diego State's guards, forwards, wings are very solid. They're going to try to get downhill, try to come at you, try to be in your face, really get at you defensively. I mean, that's been the hallmark of these Brian Dutcher coach teams, is that they're tough as nails. And they have a doggish nature about how they play and how they compete. Also, Big Magoon Gwaith, or however you say his name, I think it's Gwaith.
I think, yeah.
Gwaith, excuse me,
yeah.
Gwaith. Let me pronounce it right. Magoon, Big Magoon, right? 7-footer. Believe he was Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. He's on everybody's radar for the next level. How will he impact the game? Do we have anybody that can combat that type of guy? We're going to see early, right now, what type of chops that we got at the 5 position. For me, the battle of the 5, who's going to start? Who's going to play the majority of the minutes, and then the ebbs and flows of the position in terms of how you're going to play. How are we going to get offense? Are we going vertical with lobs, pick and rolls, and going to the rim? Are we going to try to go straight up to the block? Are we posting people up? I think that's what I'm going to be watching for. I'm less concerned about the guards. When you have a guy like Donovan Dent coming in, who is seasoned, who is experienced, a 20-point per game scorer, we've already talked about him enough. It gives you a sense of confidence as a coach to where you can kind of pull back a little bit. You don't have to micromanage everybody. You don't have to micromanage everything. You can kind of let this guy be your coach on the floor and your eyes and ears out there. So this game is going to really, look, it's exhibition season, so we can't get high. We can't get too high. We can't get too low, right? But I'm of the belief that I use the exhibition season to really measure where we're at, because we've been going hard for an entire summer. Then we go into the fall. And so I expect us, and this is me speaking as if I was a coach of UCLA basketball, I expect us to have reached a certain level of development in terms of where I feel like we need to be on track. San Diego State is a great barometer to start the season, top 25 team. I mean, this is a big time matchup going down in their place. Going to be interesting. No Eric Daly Jr. I wonder who's going to start. Potentially Trent Perry. We'll see. That means a small lineup. It's just a lot of questions. So I'm excited though. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, we had last year UCLA lost in the secret scrimmage. A couple of years ago when UCLA had Jaquez and they had Bona and Tiger Campbell, they beat San Diego State in that secret scrimmage. It was a high scoring affair. Little did we know San Diego State was going to make the championship game when UCLA eventually got hurt later in that postseason. So this has been like the big barometer preseason secret scrimmage. Now we get to see it for everybody. And what we believe to be a sellout in Viejas, even though it won't be a real game, but it will feel real in our hearts, and we'll overreact. We will certainly overreact for sure. But I think.
Yeah. But also think about the test. A couple of shows ago, whenever it was last I was on, I think we were talking. You asked me something about, as far as you wanted the marquee matchups. You wanted, better type of, not made for TV, but like bring in Duke, bring in Kentucky type thing. I think for what Mick Cronin's trying to accomplish and for the hand that he's dealt and what he can do, I mean, this is just as good. This type of matchup is just as good as playing Duke, as playing Kentucky, playing Kansas. It's a regional rivalry type environment on the road against literally a top 25 team a season ago. It's like, that wants to kick your butt. So that's the whole point.
And they're going to rein in the new Pac-12. They want to be. We are the Pac-12. Forget UCLA. We'll be the Pac-12. Go play those Big Ten schemes.
There's a lot at stake, man. There's the bragging rights. There's a lot at stake, in my opinion. I don't take these games as just exhibition games.
You certainly shouldn't. And while we've been hyping up the men's team, it's time to hype up the women's team. They have a gauntlet of a non-conference schedule, and they have, one of the best rosters across the sport. We'll talk about them next, and we'll talk a little bit about their latest 2 commits next on Locked On UCLA. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow, or over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blindside coverage. If you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can help you save hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Well, we're in the midst of the NFL season, and heck, we're even in college football season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can bet so many ways. You can play so many ways. It's parlays, player props, and even look at the live lines during the games. It gets you watching football and keeps it more exciting when something's riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, now we're talking UCLA women's basketball, one of the most anticipated seasons that Corey Close has ever had, leading the helm of the program. And KJ, for UCLA, it seems like it's been building, obviously. You get that Super 22 class. They've been slowly building, adding in the transfer portal, losing a couple of players here and there. And all of a sudden, this is the year. This is the chance to win the national championship. They got to the Final Four last year, preseason number 3, a gauntlet of a November schedule that includes Oklahoma, includes a San Diego State. I've talked about this a little bit before, a week ago when the schedule came out. Even the mid-majors they're playing were tournament teams a year ago. So even the quote-unquote cupcakes, all tournament teams. You mix in Oklahoma top 10 team, Tennessee a top 10 team, whether it's a Texas, a Duke, or South Carolina when they play in Vegas, North Carolina. This is as stacked of a schedule as you're going to see in the sport.
Yeah, it's one of the best schedules in the country in terms of the non-conference. It's going to prepare the young ladies for what matters at the end of the day. Can they beat a high-level UConn or South Carolina in the NCAA tournament, or LSU? Or, I think those kind of are the teams that I would look at. Texas obviously is going to be an issue, but can you beat those teams when it really matters? Coach Close made a concerted effort this season to play literally every single team that someone transferred to from. So everybody that transferred last year, we're playing them this year. I love it. I'm excited about how we're opening the season against Oklahoma. Aaliyah Chavez, the number 1 player in the country. We heavily recruited her. Oklahoma also was in on Gianna Neepkin, so it came down to us in Oklahoma for the sharpshooter out of Minnesota. So that's going to have a lot of backstory. Obviously, the game against North Carolina, the number 11th ranked team in the country, Elena Alarsalo, is a homecoming for her. We get to see her again in Las Vegas. And then that Texas team, man, they got some really good guards. They got somebody, Rory Harmon, who I'm familiar with, really good player. She was hurt last year. She's going to be back this year, I believe. So all that to be said, man, these are going to be high-profile matchups. They're going to be nationally televised. Most of them will be on TV, televised, and there's going to be a lot at stake. And for Coach Close, I'm sure that her approach to coaching is building. It's obviously not trying to, the world's coming to an end if we suffer a loss or two during this gauntlet. But, in my heart of hearts, I know that she's trying to win every single game. She's trying to coach to win. Last year, you saw that this is a UCLA team at its core that can run off a lot of wins in a row. Last year, we were, 34-3. We only lost to USC and UConn. And everybody else, had a problem. And so I think that this will be the same case this year. I feel like we're a lot deeper team. I think this year's roster makes a lot more sense to make a national championship run. Shorter, it's quality over quantity. You had 12, 13 players, but those 10 players that are really going to play and contribute, they're all on the same page. They're all locked in, and the pieces fit a little bit better. It was a little bit of addition by subtraction for Coach Close and her crew. So I'm excited. Sienna Betts is coming in, Lauren's sister. I feel like she's going to come in and really help. It gives us 2 of the most versatile physically imposing posts in the country. And then on the guards position with Kiki Rice and Charlize Ledger-Walker, you have two of the best guards. In fact, Kiki, in a lot of mock drafts that I've been seeing recently, top 10 pick, number 7. I've seen one had her number 9, highly regarded. Hopefully that she comes out, all the shoulder and all the injury stuff is all good with her, and she comes out and has a great start to the season. Then Gianna Neepkins, she's a hell of a shooter. How she's going to impact this UCLA offense in terms of opening up more space for the post, Lauren Betts and others to operate. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to watch, because I don't think that it's been a while since I've seen a UCLA squad this stacked, women's basketball, this stacked from 1 through 7, 8, 9. I mean, you got a lot of players, high-level players, WNBA-type talent. So it's all about pulling it together, and UCLA definitely has the schedule to get them ready for that tournament gauntlet.
Yeah, you talk about the post. You have Lauren Betts, especially with Juju Watkins hurt. She's not playing this year. That's already been announced by USC and Juju. She's front runner for Player of the Year. And then you have somebody who could either play alongside her or sub in for her that is arguably maybe just as talented. We still have to see how Santa Betts fits in the rotation and what that's going to look like this season. But when you have somebody who's just as talented in the post, if Kiki Rice isn't doing as well underneath the break point guard wise, you're not going to like a true freshman. You got 2 possible ball handlers you can give the ball to. Everybody can mostly shoot when you come to positions 2 through 3 through 4. The Bruins are deeper shooting wise than they've been, multiple ball handlers, and they have multiple posts. It is the deepest team I think Corey Close has had. Would you say that?
Yeah, that, and I think it's what you have when you have multiple ball handlers. I mean, I think that's probably addressing UCLA's biggest issue from last year. We really ran into problems when teams pressured up full court on Kiki Rice, sped her up, made her turn and have to make plays from kind of an off-balance position. I think with Charlize Ledger-Walker, you have a 4-time All-Pac-12 selection, one of the Washington State's all-time leading scorers. Before her knee injury, she was on several WNBA mock draft boards. So it'll be interesting to see what type of form that she's able to return to. And if she can return to her form, boy, oh boy. And I think also don't sleep on Gabriela Jaquez and her impact, how she's going to come in, the seniors, right? So you have Angela Dugalich, who I think is going to start next to Lauren
Betts.
And I think Dugalich is going to start. I think she'll start. I think also Tamia Gardner is going to obviously play a big role off that bench. So I don't know I think Sienna's going to be playing some center so she can get in the game. I think early we'll be able to see how she does. I think that also, I didn't mention that Oklahoma game, but they have a center named Reagan Beers who transferred from Oregon State. We're very familiar with her. Betts versus Beers is going to be a movie. Both players are highly regarded. Beers is super strong, super solid, and this is they have a lot of familiarity there. So I'm really excited about that matchup. But I'm really it's going to be interesting to see just, how Coach Close puts all the pieces together and who goes where.
It'll be interesting for sure. And obviously, if they beat Texas in that Vegas matchup around Thanksgiving, they'll either play South Carolina or Duke. And those are 2 teams that are in the top 10. Obviously, I want to see South Carolina. I like to give them another thumping again. But obviously, when you put Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks in the game against UCLA, that's a primetime matchup. And everybody's going to be watching football. No. I'm going to have that game glued to watching, hopefully, UCLA, South Carolina on Thanksgiving Day. Now let's pivot real quick. Kris, UCLA has had a couple of 26s commit to the next year's recruiting class. The Bruins were wondering with a senior-heavy roster. This is the team that is going all in this year. I don't think they'll be anywhere near a preseason top 5 next year. They can be very good, but they're not as great as this team will be from this year to next year. Doesn't mean they won't be really good, but this is what they got coming in. You have Somto Okafor, who just committed, and you have Isi Etut, who also committed to UCLA in the last couple of weeks. What do you know about them, and what does that fit potentially, KJ, for UCLA in the year to move forward when they're losing a Lauren Betts, a Kiki Rice, and some of the transfers?
Well, Okafor is a Spanish guard, I believe of Nigerian descent, but her game, she's a defensive stopper. She has an elite motor. And she's a serious slasher, can score it offensively, attacks the rim, puts pressure on you. I mean, really has the ability to get downhill. Kind of reminds me in a lot of ways of Charisma Osborne, her impact on the game.
Could she
Big
shoot
time
as well
play.
as Charisma?
Not well, from what I've seen, I see her attacking more. So
Okay.
I'll be interested to see if she can shoot it that way. She really doesn't settle for jumpers, so she's always on the attack. I feel like she's a good guard to bring in just because of her, not only her international experience and her level of seasoning, but she's twitchy, and so she's athletic, and she's long, and she's rangy. She can move side to side and go up and down. And those are the type of guards that you're going to need to beat South Carolina and all these other elite teams, and even mess with USC and some of the other top teams in the Big Ten. You need length and athleticism in the women's game. Also, the other young lady, Joyce East. Yeah, Joyce East, from Luxembourg, by way of IMG Academy in Florida. 6'2", smart player, high level, big body, moves people, but can put it on the floor a little bit. Not saying a lot of bit, but just nimble. Understands how to play. A good piece. And I think for Coach Close, it's just really about piecing together your 2026 class. There's her recruiting, this NIL stuff has kind of changed a lot of coaches' philosophy and how they recruit and the type of players they go after. And so, you'll see like with these two signings, you get two international players. One's at IMG and Academy, sort of a dedicated facility to kind of churn out athletes. You might not get as many conventional athletes, although Autumn Fleary, the young lady from Sidwell and Friends, Kiki Rice's alma mater, she is announcing this Saturday, I believe. I think we are in the top 4. Some have said Duke might be making a push, but Duke signed a player that was, Bella Fleming, who's number 16 ranked recruit in the country. So I think Fleary's a Bruin. And if you have Fleary, who at the point guard position is as dynamic as they come, for high school talent, right? Now you have Okafor, Fleary, and you have Ituti in this 26 class that you build and you piece around Lena and Sienna, and now you're talking because you got to also consider, just your roster makeup and the type of players you have. If you have a couple players that aren't twitchy athletes, you might need to surround them with them. And I think what we're saying is Coach Cole's kind of building the process. Now, I do think that she will hit the portal heavy. So I think that, building a roster with a base, a nice mix of international and high school, probably after Fleary, probably one more high school player to make it 4, and then probably go 4 in the portal. And so I think that's going to be her move. I think that's going to, how she's going to build for 2026, because they lose a lot. I mean, UCLA, you're losing like what? Shoot, 9, 8, 7 seniors. I don't know, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
A ton of production, WNBA draft picks. So you got to retool. And what I do know about Coach Close, she is going to retool. She's got to get some players, and we see that with these two. Excited about their future.
On the schedule, what do you think is the biggest game this year's team is going to play? Whether it be in Big Ten Conference, I think Maryland's at the edge of that top 10 too. Obviously, USC is huge. Without Juju, it's just not the same. Which of those games, if they even do play South Carolina, do you put that on the schedule as the toughest opponent, non-conference, conference, prior to a tournament or Big Ten tournament?
It's got to be South Carolina.
If they can get there.
I mean, I mean, you can say what you want. If UCLA beats Texas, they're going to be playing South Carolina. South Carolina got a whip this year. They got one of the leading scorers in the country that transferred, that they got in on NIL, Latanya Watson from Florida State, averaged 25 a game last year. They got those bigs. They have some serious talent on the wings. And Don Staley is going to remember last year shellacking in Pauley Pavilion. So I just think that South Carolina and Duke, I like Duke. I like what they have. We actually went hard after one of their young lady that was playing for them, one of their guards that kind of fits how this Okafor. She kind of reminds me of Okafor, same kind of build and type of player. But I just don't. I mean, for me, it's going to be South Carolina. I'm not even saying if they get past Duke. I'm saying it's going to be South Carolina when UCLA
Absolutely.
plays South Carolina.
We
So they're
all
going
want them
to
to play South Carolina. We want it. We need it. The sport wants it.
That's the game. That's the game, and that's going to give UCLA a lot of confidence. I think last year after beating them, although Malaysia Fulwiley wasn't playing that game or came in and then didn't play the majority of the game, Dawn Staley was kind of pulling her in, pulling her out. She's now at LSU. That was a big time player not to have. So I don't think we beat South Carolina when they're at full strength. I'll be honest with you. But to beat South Carolina the way we did with who they put out there, definitely a huge accomplishment. And I think that they will be chomping at the bit for the rematch in Vegas.
Absolutely. Dawn Staley will have her team ready to go. Even though they have a game the night before, she'll be hoping. She'll be hoping and praying that they play UCLA. And I hope they play South Carolina. But that is Kris Johnson. Those 4 letters, Here District. Anything else I can find you on, Kris, before we let you go?
No, you can just follow me on Twitter at Kris Johnson Live, and we connect.
Let's do it. That is the 1995 UCLA champ legends. One of the legends of UCLA basketball. Hey, come on, Mick. Let's go. You see Cal basketball doing all those nice things. Let's get Kris to a good game. Get him to that Purdue game, the number 1 team in the country, later this year. And that Arizona. Bring him to the Intuit Dome. Bring them all there. And you'll write a nice piece about you.
All I want is courtside. That's all I ask.
Yeah. And then maybe you can dunk on your dad, too, because doesn't he have the birthday dunk?
Inhale a freeze over, right? No, I'm just kidding.
That is KJ. Thanks for joining us once again. That is Kris Johnson. Next, I'll come up talking about UCLA football, the Renaissance, and the throwback unis next on the homecoming battle versus Maryland. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than just simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety picks and awards than anyone else. From the footwork to the breath work, athletes, they split all the details. Mazda brings this same intention, the same energy to how they craft every model. It can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from the smooth handling to intuitive controls. And like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you move, you make every move count. Impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, time to go over what this UCLA team's facing. A homecoming battle at the Rose Bowl, taking on Maryland when they're wearing the throwback uniforms. You can't lose when wearing the throwback unis. They're too great. I think, if I'm not mistaken, last 2 years, UCLA in 23 and 24 has won. They beat Iowa, and then they beat Coach Prime in Colorado in what was the most recently packed Rose Bowl game at the Rose Bowl with the UCLA team playing in the last few years. So the Bruins, when they wear these throwbacks, they mean to win. They mean to do harm on the football field. More of a, like, we're here to do some damage, beat your team, go home, and enjoy the W, all right? So here are some keys UCLA is going to need in this game. One, where you look for a UCLA team that's actually favored in this game. This is a decent Maryland team who I believe started, 4-0, has had a huge lead against Washington, let that fourth quarter lead slip away at home, and then lost to Nebraska. Maryland is one of the best teams at forcing turnovers. I think, 12 picks this year. Nico, first 3 games of the year, some interceptions. Last few games since the coaching switch, no interceptions, and has looked even better with Jerry Neuheisel on the play calling. So what does Jerry Neuheisel, Noel Mazzoni, and the UCLA offense dial up? Does Tim Skipper get as aggressive? Does he go for it on 4th downs? Do the Bruins act like that aggressive team that's here to cause chaos in college football and get every Bruin fan dreaming they can run the table and maybe, just maybe, get into that Big Ten title game? That's a dream-like scenario with what the Bruins have done after starting 0-4 and being one of the worst teams in college football. They're no longer in ESPN's bottom 10. They can't even be anywhere close to that. But if you're dreaming about just even getting to a bowl season, if you want Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football to buy that Nico jersey with his own hard-earned money, he seems to be betting his check on everything this year. Let's make him wear that Nico jersey later in the year after all the stuff goes on this year. They want a bowl season, which would feel like an absolute win this year. You have to win the Maryland game. Even before this year started, it felt like the Maryland game was a must-win, should win. Now it's even more important with UCLA rolling. This is important for Tim Skipper. If he wants the permanent job, if he wants to prove that he's the right guy, you can't lose to Maryland at home. The cross-country travel, the UCLA Bruins at home in the wonderful old-school powder blues, you just can't get it when everybody's jumping on the hype train, myself included. Even the other fans, maybe even some Tennessee fans jumping on the bandwagon, looking for the turnaround story for Nico Iamaleava in terms of everybody bashing on him, myself included, to what it's been looking like in the last few weeks with Tim Skipper, all the crazy play calls, the special teams, to Jerry Neuheisel being a standout play caller apparently in the first 2 weeks. So we need to see if UCLA is for real continuing this offensive explosion. So Nico throwing picks cannot be a part of the equation. UCLA undefeated when Nico does not throw an interception. Or excuse me, when they won, he hasn't thrown an interception. He did not throw an interception against Northwestern. The other thing is, it's the movable objects and what I forget, the force object, whatever the metaphor is. You've got Maryland, who is horrible at running the football, and UCLA, who statistically, a lot of which started at the beginning of the year, couldn't necessarily stop the run. The Bruins have been a lot more physical. The ability to stop Penn State when it was 4th and short, knocked them out, made sure that horrible 4th down call was pretty much the end of James Franklin's tenure at Penn State, even though he did lose to Northwestern next week. The Bruins were able to be physical against Michigan State after they started off pretty strong. Maryland, not the strongest running team. For the first time all season, Maryland had 4 more yards rushing the football per carry in a game this year. They hadn't had a game where they rushed for 4+ yards per carry in a game this year. So it's going to come down to the physicality line of scrimmage, just like almost every game in this Big Ten season will be. Can Kevin Coyle and the UCLA defense come through, be big up front, and make sure that UCLA does not come in and get themselves stumped on the Maryland run? Because if Maryland, with their freshman quarterback Malik Washington, is running the football on the UCLA defense, it's not a strong Maryland rushing attack, all right? They might just dink and dunk it down the field. They got their true freshman quarterback. I want to see a couple takeaways. I want to see the Bruins be aggressive and get the takeaways and showcase the new D-line that is physical, making plays in the backfield, tackles for loss, sacks, things that we saw the Bruins whiff on in the backfield in weeks 1 through 3, 4, 5, if you include the bye. And now they've just completely turned it around in the second half of the Northwestern game. Obviously, Penn State, they were able to hold them off just enough in that first half and just dominated Michigan State, quarterback 1 and Aiden Childs, and their backup quarterback after Childs got knocked out of that game. So huge for UCLA. And finally, if the Bruins don't clean up the penalties, it will hurt them. As much as it looked like maybe Tino was a problem when it came to the crazy, the play calls, when it was the likes of just an undisciplined, uncaring football team, the vibes have changed, but the discipline has to be there, all right? The idea was that Deshaun came into this program with 3 pillars: discipline, respect, enthusiasm. Well, it didn't seem like any of those things were there at the end. Now, the Bruins have earned some respect. They've showcased the enthusiasm. The final thing, if Tim Skipper is going to keep up the preseason models, the preseason pillars, and actually implement them for a program for the rest of this season, discipline has to be one of those. The Bruins were flagged for way too many penalties against Michigan State if you want to be a team that continues to win. If they want to be a team that comes out of nowhere and makes a bowl game, or even shocks everybody and wins 7 games this year despite an 0-4 start, well, UCLA, they have to clean it up. There can't be any false start penalties. I know it's a little different playing on the road from a packed atmosphere versus what should be a quieter fan base when they're not yelling when you're on offense, hopefully. Then I think UCLA can do much better. But if they're not disciplined, if Nico's getting into trouble and you're letting Maryland run the football on you, it's going to be a long day. I don't think all those things will happen. I do think UCLA, the most important one, the one that can control the most, is cleaning up the penalties. If they don't, we'll be embarrassed and we'll be angry in the post-game reaction, which I'm going to put up right after the game as per usual. Get to the Rose Bowl. Go see the Bruins take on the Terps in the homecoming battle where they wear the powder blues. And just like everybody, get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.